Welcome to Talking Money. We're on episode 13, lucky number 13. I'm joined again by Hannah Godfrey, and we'll be talking about three topical personal finance subjects this week, starting with women and the slight, or not slight, massive disadvantage women find themselves at when it comes to their pensions saving. So, Hannah, you're better equipped than I am to discuss this and introduce this one. What did the research find?
Well, so this is research from Scottish Widows, and it's definitely not slight. This research actually found that women who are in their 20s today are on course to have about £100,000 less in their pension pots than a man of the same age. And it is primarily for all the reasons that you, if you're listening as a woman, you already know, and men, I'm sure you've heard about before, that women tend to make less money. They tend to have more career breaks because they're caring for either their children or they're caring for their parents. They tend to overwhelmingly work part-time jobs as well, which means that they may not even be earning enough money to trigger the automatic enrolment threshold, which is £10,000. So if they're earning less than £10,000, they won't even have that starter contribution that is triggered by automatic enrolment. And it's just a sad state of affairs. And this is not by any stretch just a UK thing. There was actually another report out from the OECD today that found that across OECD countries, when you combine public and private sector pension sources, women aged 65 and older receive 26% less income than men from the pension system. So it's just another way that women are being sort of subtly screwed, unfortunately, for systemic issues that have been in society for years. And I've been sat here thinking to myself, what do you do about this? And I really don't know. The only thing I can come up with is to sort of force more of a burden on men. But I don't really know how you do that either. What do you make of this?
No, I mean, Scottish Widows made three suggestions, and I'm not convinced they were the most helpful of suggestions. One was save a bit more into your pension at an earlier age. So they calculated if you saved about £25 a month more from when you start your career in your early 20s, that would close the gap between male and female pension provision at retirement. It's a bit too easy, isn't it? A bit too sort of flippant to say, well, if you want to have more in your pension pot, save more into your pension pot. But as you say, the reasons for women typically having less in their pension pot at retirement are fairly clear. You know, more career breaks to raise a family or to have caring responsibilities. Typically, women are more likely to be in part-time employment, so earning less. So 75% of all part-time jobs are held by women in the UK. That we know about the gender pay gap as well. We know that even in comparable roles, women earn less in terms of their salary and their bonuses. And while we have some gender pay gap reporting now taking place for the largest companies in the country, it still shows this huge disparity in earnings power. So that was one of their suggestions. I mean, they also suggested that make sure you get enrolled into your workplace pension. And again, well, yeah, clearly make sure you get enrolled in it. But as you say, not all women qualify for that automatic enrolment threshold because of the scale of their earnings, because of that part-time issue. And they said talk more about pensions, and that's lovely. And we're talking about pensions and the gender pensions gap at the moment, but it doesn't in itself solve the problem. One of the IFAs I follow on Twitter mentioned this back on Monday, because it was International Women's Day on Monday when this press release came out, and he suggested one way of doing it would be to equalise the pension burden between men and women during their lifetimes. So at the moment, when a couple, married couple or civil partners get divorced, you can have a pension sharing order. And the person with the higher pension pot can share some of that pension pot to the person with the lower pension pot. Typically, it's men sharing their pension with women. Now, you can't do that during your lifetime. So if the government introduced legislation to allow that to happen, that's potentially one way of just equalising things a little bit. It would deal with some of the tax issues around the lifetime allowance if men were getting too close to a lifetime allowance with their pension pot. Maybe that's the solution, I don't know. But I feel like just talking about it isn't actually going to solve it. It is a big problem, £100,000 at retirement.
Yeah, I was actually quite disappointed, to be totally honest, when I saw the Scottish Widows. I think it was as well, it was just five, if women just paid in 5% more per year, I think it works out that it would be £94,000 better off, I think, which, I mean, it hasn't even made up the shortfall. But yes, it's ridiculous to suggest that everybody has the means to do that. And I say this as someone that always says, please, God, pay into your pension as much as you possibly can. It's the best investment you're ever going to make. And of course, as well, the coronavirus has made this situation even worse now, because women overwhelmingly work in careers that have been hit very badly
Yeah.
by the coronavirus, like retail, like hospitality. They've disproportionately been furloughed as well. And all of this will have a knock-on effect on their careers, and all of it will have a knock-on effect on their pensions. There is one thing I wanted to make your listeners aware of, but I would prefer you to explain it, because
Okay.
I've written a few articles about this, but just so I'm clear about the rules, I think a lot of people don't know that they can apply for child benefits when they're taking some time off work, which I think puts money towards women's pension contributions even when they're not working. And I think a lot of people don't know about that. And I feel like that's actually semi-useful advice.
Yeah, so this is in respect of a state pension rather than a workplace pension or a personal pension. And effectively, you've got to make sure that you're making that child benefit claim, because it keeps up your national insurance contribution record. So you have as many years, qualifying years as possible towards your state pension. Now, the reason in recent years lots of women haven't been building up that credit is because of this horrible tax charge got introduced under the coalition government. I think the child benefit high income tax charge. So if as a household, and you put me on the spot here with my numbers, but if as a household you have one person earning at least £50,000 a year, then that child benefit gets taxed away down to zero effectively. So lots of families now don't claim child benefit because they know they're going to have to pay it all back in tax anyway. So you don't have to claim child benefit to make sure you get that national insurance credit. There is an HMRC form, and I'll pop a link to that in the description and show notes. So you can still register as a a parent with childcare responsibilities. You can still get that national insurance credit taking place, even though you're not working, even though you're not paying your national insurance contributions. So yeah, so that's a really important one.
Yeah, I know, and obviously, yeah, I mean, it's not, listen, it's not going to make up 100,000 by any stretch
Oh,
of the imagination, but I think at this point you have to take what you can get. And I mean, I think this is obviously, this research will affect certain women more than others. For instance, if you don't go on to have children, you'll probably have less of a shortfall in your pension because you won't be taking time off to care for your children. If you're lucky enough that your parents don't get unwell, you know, you might also be better off in the future. But I I don't know how we deal with this, quite honestly. And I'm almost, it's so frustrating talking about it, because it's, you almost want to tear your hair out, because you know it's a problem, you know what the problem is, and there's just no obvious way around it, because unfortunately women have to be the ones to give birth, and I would give up that right in a heartbeat and put it on men if I could. Um, but it is what it is. So I always talk about as well how I think men should have more parental leave. So it's completely shared between men and women. So the burden of having a child falls more evenly on both sexes. I think that would
yeah.
be a sensible thing to do as well. But yeah, it just sucks.
Yeah, that's a good conclusion from it. But important we talk about it, and I'm sure as it becomes more of a debated subject, that politicians and policymakers will hopefully, take it on and start helping, hopefully coming up with some solutions which are practical and easy to implement.